Nick Underhill tweeted yesterday afternoon on a call with donors to the Louisiana Lafayette Athletic Foundation today. Jeff Ireland said the Saints had, quote, pretty strong intel, end quote, that Miami and Kansas City would take Ruiz. They initially looked to trade back, but called it off once they learned about other interest. Found that really interesting. Maybe slight payback for 2017. If you remember, the Saints were prepared to take Patrick Mahomes, 11 overall. And the Kansas City Chiefs traded up one spot ahead of New Orleans to 10 to take Mahomes. And, of course, the Saints then took Marshawn Lattimore. It's worked out for both, but Mahomes, of course, has gone on to win an MVP and a Super Bowl. But I also saw that my first reaction was it's further explanation as to why. The biggest conversation we were having after the draft when the Saints took Ruiz, many fans said, why wouldn't you take Patrick Queen? One of the elite inside linebackers was there. You needed a linebacker, and you decided to go interior line. Now, the day after the draft, I very clearly spelled out for you all the indicators that Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis had given leading up to the draft. We played audio from Mickey. We played audio from Sean. We played audio from Mike Desane. And a month ago, we played audio for Diana Rossini, who was covering the Saints that day, saying they were looking interior line. The Saints told us all along that they liked the interior line, and clearly the player they liked best in this draft was Cesar Ruiz, and they didn't feel like he was going to be there in round 2. So maybe the Saints were thinking, let me trade back to where I can get Ruiz perhaps at the top of round 2 and recoup another pick in this draft. But once they learned Ruiz wasn't going to be on the board, they decided to pull the trigger. Now, what's interesting is, had the Chiefs taken Ruiz, obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire would not have been their first-round pick, and I think that's a perfect landing spot for him. But I think for some, this might change your opinion, especially what we've seen, how the dominoes have fallen there since the draft. They take Ruiz. They obviously have now cut Larry Warford. They save about $7+ million in cap space. They got younger on the offensive line. They got more cap relief, obviously, and they got a player they deemed to be the best interior player in this draft, who's also versatile, allows you to kick Eric McCoy to guard. Like, it makes a lot of sense as you're starting to piece this puzzle together. We could have the conversation about what if Clyde didn't go 32 and what if Ruiz would have gone to the Chiefs if the Saints had traded back. How might that have looked? Would there have been a linebacker? Maybe they take Zach Bond at the top of round 2 instead of round 3, but he was sitting there for him in round 3 when they got him. So, or when they traded up to go get him. So I think the more we look at the total picture, right? Sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees, but whenever you sort of pull back and you get the view from the clouds of the entire picture, it starts to make a little more sense. So, and this does happen. Now, sometimes teams float out, your red herrings, and it's just to throw teams off the scent of what they actually want to do. So there's no way to definitively know, but if the Saints were actually looking to trade back and decided to pull the trigger on Ruiz, they had to have a really strong feeling that the player they wanted wasn't going to be on the board when they were picking, and that's why they pulled the trigger on Ruiz. And I'm actually really good with it because I think the Saints have the way that they have very clearly shown what they're doing with the roster indicates why they did that. The other thing that speaks to that, we've now gotten the list of the amount of money the Saints are paying their undrafted free agents, right? So if you're a draft pick, you get a slot value. Like, we knew what Joe Burrow's contract was going to be before he was even selected by the Bengals. The last CBA, forgive me if I'm preaching, some of you know this, but for the benefit of those that don't, back in the day, first-round picks oftentimes would hold out for better deals. The last CBA, essentially the NFL Players Association negotiated to cap rookie deals and give more money to veterans. You'd have a minimum for a veteran. They increased the veteran minimum and capped rookie deals. So there's no more Jamarcus Russell holding out to get $60 million or Sam Bradford getting $50 million guaranteed. That doesn't happen anymore. So the Saints went into the draft knowing what their draft picks were going to cost them. Like, for example, last year, Caden Ellis was their 7th-round pick. He got $76,000 as a signing bonus. That was his only guarantee. Alize Mack was the other 7th round pick. He was guaranteed $93,000. So I'm giving you those numbers to illustrate what I'm about to tell you. Last year's 7th round picks, Alize Mack and Caden Ellis got $93,000 and $76,000 respectively. Joe Bocci, the linebacker out of Michigan State, undrafted free agent. Undrafted. They gave him $145,000 guaranteed. They did double the guaranteed money they gave last year's 7th round pick, Caden Ellis. What does that say to you? To me, it's pretty obvious. They like that player a lot. I mean, we've talked about the Saints needing to bolster the linebacker position. If they stay healthy, right? This has been my point all along. If they stay healthy, cool. You've got Demario Davis, who's an all-pro. Craig Robertson has been a really good backup rotational player, a special teams guy. And you've got Kiko Alonso and Alex Anzalone, guys who are really good players coming off of season-ending injuries, as is Caden Ellis. If you can keep them all healthy, fantastic. You're good there. But what's also obvious, to me anyway, is the Saints right now are, and maybe this is illustrating why they've had a lack of free agent movement here in the second wave of free agency. The Saints are very clearly building their roster to get younger and less expensive in spots because of what's ahead. They have this very strange balancing act going on. Because they drafted so exceptionally well in 2017 and in the years since, they have all of these guys that were elite level players on super inexpensive rookie contracts. Well, now they're coming due. You've had to pay Michael Thomas a record-setting deal. You're going to have to pay Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk. You're going to pay all of those guys. You just paid, Andrus Peat. But what they're doing, obviously, is getting younger and more cost-effective in spots. For example, you just cut Larry Warford. You shed a $12 million salary off this year's salary cap. And look at the line now. Eric McCoy's on a rookie deal. Cesar Ruiz is going to be on a rookie deal. Ramczyk is on a rookie deal for at least this year, and you could pick up his 5th-year option, so you could have him on a rookie deal for 2 more years before you have to break the bank for him. At linebacker, you said farewell to A.J. Klein. You drafted Zach Bond. Now you've got Bocci from Michigan State that you're investing in heavily because you think he could be a guy, and if both of those hit, even after this year, if you bid farewell to Kiko Alonso, you've got Demario Davis, you've got Bond, you've got Bocci. Like, you feel good about your young core if they play up to the level that some of the rookies, that the guys who are currently on rookie contracts have. Guys like Lattimore. Lattimore's become a legit number 1 cornerback in the NFL playing on a bargain basement rookie deal. You need that to happen again. And then you look at wide receiver. We've asked, why haven't they gone invest in a receiver? Well, you've got $100 million right now invested into Michael Thomas. They let Ted Ginn walk. Veteran player. You sign Emmanuel Sanders to a 2-year deal, but realistically, it's more of like a 1-year contract. You'll save $8 million against the cap if he's not on the roster next year. So very likely, Emmanuel Sanders is on a 1-year deal. So you've got Lil Jordan Humphrey, and you've got Emmanuel Butler, and you've got Marquez Callaway, and you went out and you signed Juwan Johnson as an undrafted free agent. We'll see if Deontay Harris can emerge as a receiver, but you can see what the Saints are doing. They're recognizing that they're not building. They're not going to be able to build through veteran free agency by going and being aggressive at the beginning of free agency to get other teams' players. That's how they're going to supplement the roster where they have spots they need, like with Emmanuel Sanders. But what they're doing very clearly is getting younger and more expensive and less expensive through what they hope continues to be elite level scouting and hitting on players that allows them to be able to pay their veterans that are coming up for their second contract, which are going to be very, very expensive contracts. The other thing that's going to work in the New Orleans' favor long term is Drew Brees is going to come off the books financially. That's going to work in New Orleans' favor long term. You hope if it's Taysom Hill, if it's Jameis Winston, whoever becomes the quarterback next, whoever it is, if it's one of those guys, if they draft a guy, whoever it is, isn't getting a deal like Drew Brees has. Whoever it is isn't going to be a guy you have to pay $25, $30 million a year to. So you're going to lessen your cap restriction there, your cap hit there at quarterback. It's obvious what they're doing and how they're building. And I see it. I like it. I like what they're doing. The one question is if your scouting department continues to hit. I mean, look, the last time the Saints spent that type of investment in an undrafted free agent was Cameron Tom. In 2017, Cameron Tom, who, by the way, Cali High! Cameron Tom went to Southern Miss, blew up, but he went undrafted. The Saints signed him, and they signed him to a 3-year, $1.66 million contract. They loved the player. And so he had an unfortunate injury last year, but they've kept him around. That's a guy they really like his potential. So they're telling you the same thing with Joe Bacci. And maybe, the linebacker out of Michigan State is the one that they really like that's going to make this 53-man squad and be an impact player for New Orleans, not just this year, but in the future. For what it's worth, Calvin Throckmorton, offensive lineman out of Oregon, got $110,000 guaranteed salary. Malcolm Roach out of Texas and Marquez Callaway out of Tennessee each got $85,000. So those were the next guys. If you're looking at investment to correlate to how much the Saints like a prospect, that's a good place to start. I've told y'all before, watch out for Marquez Callaway. I mean, that's a guy that is tailor-made for the Ted Ginn role in this offense.